You want to hear the truth. Visiting Palestine was nothing like I expected. You think you know a place from the news, from the headlines, from sound bites, but nothing prepares you for standing there in the middle of it, feeling the weight of history, conflict, and hope all at once. I landed with assumptions like most people do, thinking I'd see chaos, despair, maybe hostility. What I actually saw was something far more complex, far more human. I saw people who had been beaten down by circumstance but refused to be broken. Families living with uncertainty and danger every single day, yet somehow they carried themselves with a dignity and resilience that left me stunned. There's a moment you can't forget, watching a father protect his children as the world around them seemed to teeter on the edge of destruction. You hear about suffering in the abstract, but here it's raw, it's personal, it's real. It's impossible to stand in those streets without feeling the urgent pulse of a community fighting for survival, for justice, for recognition. And amidst all this, what struck me most was the calm strength of the people's faith. Not the kind of faith that demands loud sermons or flashy displays, but a quiet, unshakable belief that anchors them through decades of hardship. That scene flipped my entire perspective on its head. I realized how easy it is to judge from a distance, to reduce entire communities to stereotypes or political talking points. But when you look into the eyes of the people who live this reality, you understand the layers, their humanity, their pain, their hope. Palestine wasn't just a place on a map, it was a living lesson in endurance and faith, a stark reminder that sometimes the most profound truths come not from textbooks or broadcasts, but from simply being there and listening. Let me tell you something that hit me like a punch in the gut. The faith I witnessed in Palestine was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It wasn't about rituals or ceremonies. It was something far deeper, something you feel in your bones. Imagine people who face daily uncertainty, threats to their homes, their lives, yet wake up every morning with a calm determination, grounded in a belief so profound it's almost unimaginable. This wasn't blind faith or empty tradition. It was a source of strength that kept them standing tall when the world seemed determined to knock them down. I watched men and women pray with a focus that cut through the chaos surrounding them, a serenity that was not just spiritual, but almost defiant in its resolve. Here was faith as armor, as solace, and as motivation. It wasn't just about religion, it was about survival, hope, and identity intertwined. You cannot grasp the meaning of resilience until you see it powered by this kind of belief. It forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about strength. Because faith in that context isn't just a personal refuge, it's a communal lifeline, binding people together through shared hardship and shared hope. I found myself questioning my own understanding of conviction. What does it truly mean to believe? How do you measure faith when it's tested day in, day out by loss, fear, and uncertainty? The Palestinians taught me that faith is not a luxury, it's a necessity, a fuel that drives the human spirit forward even in the bleakest moments. That kind of faith demands respect, it demands attention, and it demands that you reconsider what real courage looks like. If you think faith is easy, think again. What I saw was something stronger, purer, and infinitely more powerful than I'd ever imagined. You think you know Islam, you think you understand the people behind the headlines, think again. Visiting Palestine ripped apart every stereotype I'd ever held about Muslims and their faith. The media often paints a picture that's one-dimensional: conflict, extremism, division. But standing there, in the heart of that land, I was forced to confront a reality that was far more nuanced, far richer, and frankly, far more human than any soundbite could capture. It's easy to judge from the sidelines, to accept a narrative spoon, fed by sensationalism and prejudice. But when you meet the people themselves, when you see their daily lives, their kindness, their struggles, your whole perception shifts. These are people who, despite immense pressure and pain, choose compassion over hatred, peace over violence. It made me realize how shallow my previous understanding had been, shaped more by fear and ignorance than by actual experience. What struck me most was the humility and warmth with which they shared their stories and their faith. It wasn't about proselytizing or politics. It was about connection, about shared humanity. This shattered the walls of misconception I'd unknowingly built around my own beliefs. I saw how easily we allow labels to divide us, when in truth we are all more alike than different. If you want to understand Islam, don't listen to the noise, go beyond the headlines, look into the eyes of the people living their faith every day. The lessons I learned there were not just about religion, they were about empathy, respect, and the courage to challenge everything you think you know. That's the real story nobody wants to tell you. If you think becoming Muslim was some impulsive decision or a political statement, think again. This was a deeply personal journey, one that unfolded quietly but with immense weight. Visiting Palestine forced me into a mirror, confronting questions I had long avoided, questions about meaning, purpose, and the kind of person I wanted to be. It wasn't about rebellion or defiance. It was about seeking truth in a world that often feels fragmented and superficial. What surprised me most was how naturally the faith began to resonate with something inside me I hadn't fully understood before. Islam, as I encountered it, wasn't just a set of rules or rituals. It was a path to discipline, clarity, and a profound sense of peace. It challenged me to live with intention, to hold myself accountable, and to connect with a tradition that emphasizes both personal responsibility and compassion. The transformation wasn't overnight, it was gradual, marked by reflection and sometimes uncomfortable self-examination. I had to let go of old assumptions and open myself to new ways of thinking. But in that process, I discovered something rare, a faith that didn't ask me to abandon my identity, but rather to deepen it. What made this journey compelling was its honesty. No sugarcoating, no shortcuts, just a search for meaning in a world that desperately needs it. And that's why it struck such a chord with me. It wasn't about fitting into a mold, but about finding something real, something unshakable. This wasn't about changing who I was. It was about becoming who I was meant to be. That's a journey anyone can respect, regardless of their background or beliefs. Let me be clear, my decision to become Muslim was not an attack on any other faith, nor a rejection of the values I grew up with. It was quite simply a call for something much bigger, unity, empathy, and a recognition of our shared humanity. In a world so often divided by religion, politics, and ideology, the story I witnessed in Palestine reminded me of something fundamental. People, regardless of creed or background, want the same things: dignity, peace, and respect. What struck me was how faith acted as a bridge rather than a barrier. The people I met didn't use religion to isolate themselves or sow division. Instead, it was a force that connected them to each other and to a greater purpose. It made me realize how often we miss the point by focusing on the differences rather than the common ground. Religion should never be a weapon. It should be a means to build understanding and foster compassion. This journey opened my eyes to the possibility that faith can unite rather than divide. It's a powerful reminder that we are all part of a larger human story, one where respect and empathy must come before suspicion and fear. If anything, my conversion is an invitation to look beyond labels and to engage with the world in a spirit of openness and kindness. In times when mistrust is rampant and divisions seem unbridgeable, this lesson couldn't be more urgent. We have to ask ourselves, what is the point of faith if it doesn't bring us together? The answer, I found, lies in embracing our shared humanity and refusing to let ideology blind us to the people behind the headlines. Here's a truth that too many shy away from: growth demands courage. the courage to question everything you think you know and to face uncomfortable realities head on. My journey into Islam wasn't handed to me on a silver platter. It came because I was willing to seek the truth, to look beyond convenience and comfort, and to embrace change even when it felt unsettling. That kind of bravery is rare. It's easy to cling to certainty, to stick with what's familiar, but true transformation begins where comfort ends. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that no one's beliefs are set in stone. Life is a constant evolution, and the willingness to adapt is what separates those who truly grow from those who remain stagnant. I challenge anyone listening to dare to ask the hard questions about faith, about identity, about purpose. Don't settle for easy answers or inherited opinions. Dig deeper. The moment you stop searching is the moment you stop living fully. Change can be intimidating, but it's also liberating. Embracing a new perspective doesn't mean losing yourself. It means discovering new dimensions of who you are. That's the paradox of growth. It requires letting go, but ultimately leads to finding something more authentic, more aligned with your deepest truths. This journey has shown me that transformation isn't about pleasing others or conforming. It's about being honest with yourself. And that honesty demands relentless self-examination and a willingness to be vulnerable. If you want to unlock your true potential, you have to be prepared to evolve, to rethink, and to embrace the unknown. That's the real path to strength, and it's a path open to anyone willing to take the first step.